hunt. Through the lens of hunting, I'm interested in early hunters because these guys hunt all the time.
And for their life.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a life and death struggle to that, we in this first world where you just go to the supermarket and get your food, whether you're a meat eater or not. I mean, the lack of understanding and appreciation of hunting and gathering, and that it's literally a part of being a human being. Maybe not hunting. If you really become a vegetarian and you're just gung-ho for that, for whatever reason, you're allowed your own thoughts. I don't mind. I don't care. I don't want to change anybody's opinion on it. But you're just making your own vegetable garden, growing your own food and eating it and surviving off some stuff that you have actually grown yourself. And you have this really intimate relationship with your food then, which I think is a part of being an intelligent thing that is aware of its environment. I think one of the issues that human beings have as a whole is that in order to feed us all, in order to move us all in the general direction that we move in, and to do it in big cities that live on the waters, you're going to have a lot of waste. You're going to have pollution. You're going to have it's not going to be done clean and tidy. It's going to be done wild and chaotic.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is because we are not feeling the damage that we're doing. It's not like we are, shitting in our own backyard and going, man, maybe you should stop shitting in the backyard. This is ruining the whole place. No, it's happening somewhere that's not even anywhere near your house. And as long as you can get your cheeseburger, you don't give a fuck. As long as you can pull into that drive-through and then ask for a number 2 large and just, give them some paper and then you got your food. It's that easy. That lack of connection when you're still a carnivore, when you're still an animal, you're still a biological entity that's processing other biological entities and plants, and you're living off living things. Period. Everybody is, whether you're a fucking vegetarian or not, man. But we don't feel that. We don't feel that because we have completely distanced ourselves from the gathering and the growing and all that. We're like little children, so we just shit all over the floor, and that's literally, and in my opinion, one of the number one things that's wrong with human culture. We've grown too fast for our biology.
I think that's a valid point, and I would say, and I hate to hammer it home and say oh, you're not a complete person if you don't have the experience of hunting your own food or growing your own food. I don't want to be extreme like that, but I would say there's this whole suite of human activities that seem to help you develop into a fuller person.
As does,
and it'd be like reading. Like reading is helpful for your world perspective. I think that some amount of travel is helpful for your world perspective. I think that doing some hunting or some sort of food gathering is helpful for your world perspective. Now, I would say, we were talking about New York earlier. I started a garden. We have a 800 square foot garden in New York, which is a rarity, and I beat this garden into the weeds and detritus that was in that backyard. And I later had the soil tested and had very high elevated levels of lead. And I've been trying to mitigate that over the years and get it under control.
From pollution.
From leaded gas, when I sent my stuff off to Cornell to have it tested, and the paperwork they gave me said that people will have a tendency to blame lead paint, but it mostly was from just leaded gasoline. There was that much exhaust over those years of lead gasoline that just lead just settled, and it sits near the surface.
I remember when people were mad that they got rid of lead.
Yeah, I remember I graduated from high school in 1992. I remember dudes having old cars, and they would have to buy lead additive and add it into old cars because they couldn't get leaded gas anymore.
Yeah, I remember
that seems like so long ago now, man.
It's crazy. But think about it.
But yeah, so that awareness all of a sudden about
Are you replacing the soil?
No, there's a number of things they tell you to do. Lower on the pH scales, low is acidic, right?
I don't know.
7's neutral, 6 is slightly acidic. They tell you to raise the pH. They tell you to introduce a lot of organic matter, and that'll inhibit the plant's ability to pick up lead. And they tell you to not plant things like potatoes and things where there might be actual physical contamination of dirt. The fear is that you're just eating dirt.
Right.
It's not that the plant's uptaking. I mean, the plant can uptake lead at some amount under some conditions, but mainly they don't want you eating the dirt.
Right.
So like spinach, which has a lot of folds. We were talking about insect contamination. They're the same plants that would have a tendency to hold insect eggs, and you don't wash them out properly. They try to get you to not grow that. So the ideal plant for leaded soil would be let's say you grew a tomato, for instance. It's way off the ground and it's very easy to clean. But dealing with that little battle just for the simple desire to like grow food, made me more aware of like the complications of having some level of an urban life. It's like it's in your mind like, oh, of course the city must be polluted. It's a city. But then to go out and see it in your yard and like battle it and have it put to you in numbers, like you have blank parts per million lead, really woke me up to that level, and also kind of infuriated me in an environmental way to think that it seems like some kind of like God-given right that if you got dirt, you should be able to grow plants on it. And imagine that we're at a point where you're growing plants out of the dirt, so that it's like you're advised against eating. To me, it's just kind of like upsetting to me. It's upsetting to me. And again, it's like perhaps it's that like weird lack of imagination where until something's really brought home to me really clearly, it doesn't make as much sense to me. I used to tend to be not very sensitive about deforestation or about development. And it was only until now when I go and visit where I grew up and all the woods that I hung out in, and I could leave my home and wander for miles in some directions. You just have to cross the road down them, but always be in the woods. It's all built up. It's all built up now. Wow. And so now I could have heard about it happening to 100 other guys and it wouldn't have bothered me. But to go to my spots where I hung out and be like, I couldn't go where I used to hang out without crossing 20 people's yards and getting hollered at, all of a sudden makes me be like, you know what? We need to really check out what we have for wildlife habitat and what we have for like places to hang out and what we have that hasn't been destroyed yet, and be maybe a little more conservative with it and a little more like parsimonious. And it's always those little awakenings that I get only on a personal level, man.
Well, I think we all experience information that way, because if we didn't, there's so much that we're getting every day on CNN. I mean, imagine if you took every goddamn story to heart, like as if it was your own house that was getting foreclosed on, or your own kid that was kidnapped, or your own friend that was shot, or your own house that just burned down. There's too much. There's too much information. So you see, 10 people died in Iraq today. You're like, wow, I guess that it really sucks, man. I feel bad for the family. You're not even really personifying it. You
almost have to sit down and remind yourself at some news. Yeah. You have to sit down and like take a moment and remind yourself to feel the emotion of it. I find myself doing that all the time. Like, wow, you should really feel this should have like a sense of gravity to you. And I'll be like, now I will take a moment and allow myself to feel what I should feel, but maybe I'm too busy to feel. Yeah,
I've heard like when people talk about the miles of the rainforest that gets chewed up every year, and those numbers it's a staggering number. It's a terrifying number. Just miles and miles of rainforest that gets eaten up. And it really, doesn't register. I can't register it. I know it's bad. I know it's bad. It's terrible. But am I feeling it? I'm not feeling it. I don't know why I'm not feeling it. I'm a concerned person. If you said, hey, you can make the call, should they be allowed to chop down all those trees? I'd say, no, stop right there. The rainforest is amazing. But still, it doesn't matter. You unless you see it, unless you're there, unless it's like a part of your life. I don't think you're gonna. We flew over the rainforest because we went to Brazil this past weekend, and it was daytime while we were flying. And I was looking down, and I'm like, wow, that is fucking nuts.
Yeah, the first time I flew over like the Amazon area, you grow up with one impression of wilderness. Like if you grow up with an American impression of wilderness, and we're very fortunate in our resources. I mean, if you look at how much money we make and how many people live here. I mean, we've done a pretty phenomenal job of preserving some places. To fly over, like, the northern half of South America it's
fucking crazy.
I mean, like I always look at everything like this kind of like hunter angle, and I look down there, and like to know that there are people down there who've had very limited, perhaps no experience of the outside world.
Isn't that nuts?
Used to seem to me like that can't be true. Yeah. Then you fly down there and you realize that you've just flown 4 hours and there's been nothing, no road, no anything. You're like, oh, now it makes sense.
Yeah, 4 hours
guy could live around
in the rainforest while you're going 500 miles an hour.
And you're like, a guy could live down there, and you would never
know. No. Yeah, it's amazing. They said that the most recent uncontacted tribe, they had these photos of them and video. It's actually a hoax. Like somebody had, they had fucking faked the whole thing.
I know. I heard what you're talking about.
So disturbing.
But it was for a while they thought they had vanished. It was like people that had red. They were done in red.
Yeah. There's still not uncontacted tribes, but tribes that have had